Hey everybody, it's Jim here, and today we're just going to be doing a basic string change as well as giving a few pieces of advice if you are going to be setting up your Fender Mustang. Full disclaimer, I am not a professional luthier. I am just a guy who works on my own guitars. To begin with, we got to get the strings off, and luckily, this guitar is actually set up really well as is, so it shouldn't take too much for me to get this up and running again, but there are a few vital steps that I highly recommend that you do as well. Alright, so we're getting our gloves on, so I'm going to polish the frets a little bit using some of this fret knot, as well as adding a little bit of F1 oil to the fingerboard. It's a little dry, but it's all stuff that I like to do when I'm changing strings. These frets look awesome now. Alright, time for the restring. Really going to like these XS's from D'Addario's. So much so, I bought a 3-pack. Now with the Mustang, there's a few things you got to get right. Okay, first of all, let me separate these strings. Alright, with these guitars, I go 2.5 pegs. So this would be 2 pegs, and I'm going to guess to right around there. So in case the camera can't pick it up, that's where we're going to snip. I do that for all the strings. There we go. So what I did there was I pulled to make sure that the ball end was actually sitting inside of the cigar tube itself. If you don't do that, you're going to have major tuning problems. Or it could just potentially pop while you're playing. So now I got that. Not worried about it being in pitch as of right now. Let's get the rest of these strings on, doing the same process. Now if you watch here, see? Compared to these two other ones, this one's not all the way in. But I'll show you exactly the same way that we were doing it before from this angle. Okay. Notice it's sticking out a little bit. What I'm going to do is pull up on the string, and you notice it slid back. Now just retighten. Alright, so the neck is looking absolutely fantastic with the polished frets and some of that F1 oil. We got the new strings on. We've no issues with the ball ends of the strings not being securely into the actual cigar bar itself. Now we're on to getting this thing to staying in tune. For right now I have the snark on because I'm not concerned about perfection, because we're going to stretch these out quite a bit. But what we're going to do is, so we're about half a semitone off there with a D sharp. A little bit of this Big Ben's nut sauce. In we go, and also make sure we're under the string tree. Alright, so we're E. We'll do the same thing now with the rest of these strings. So lift it just off a little bit. And what I like to do to clean up some of the nut sauce, you don't need a ton of it, just enough. And the reason I like doing it closer to the actual pitch that the string is going to be tuned at is because if you notice, the lubricant itself moves with the string. So if you apply the lubricant when the strings are completely slackened, as you actually add tension to the strings, the lubricant's just going to keep going this way and this way and this way. So I like being just a half a step off towards the ideal tuning that I'm going for on that instrument, then adding it in and then tuning back up from there. It also helps to kind of break in the lubricant a little bit. Alright, now this is a really important part of a Fender Mustang setup, the vibrato arm. When you push it in here, you do not want to hear that noise. That means it is touching the base plate. Obviously you'll be able to use your eyes to see if it's doing it as well. When you are tightening in the grub screw that is on the side of this vibrato, make sure that the bottom of this is not touching this, or you are asking for it, my friend. Get it close to a position that you like, and then just give it a little bit of a tighten here. There we go. Really cool. So move a little bit. Perfect. All right, now we get on to stretching out these strings. Okay, now I'm a little bit more worried about accuracy, so I actually have the guitar plugged into the TC Electronics Polytune. We're going to retune it up. Might take a few times. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and stretch each string in the following manner. I'm going to hold down and then just pull. Now, it's important to do this, especially on guitars that have a vibrato, but it really will benefit on any guitar as far as the tuning stability goes out of the box with new strings. You'll know when the string is saying you're pulling too hard. It's gonna not feel really great in your hands. So know that if you do pull too hard, you risk it snapping, but it's pretty obvious to tell, especially the more that you get comfortable doing this, where that limit is. And if you ever feel like you are pulling too hard, you are pulling too hard. Follow your instincts. And another thing I want you to notice here, once I get done with this on all the strings, I'm going to strum it. We were pretty close to relatively in tune, and it's going to be way out from this. And as we repeat this process, you'll notice it stays more and more in tune. It's only moved by about half a semitone. Cool. Repeat. All right, last but not least, we're going to check the intonation. So that is in key, so we want to make sure that the 12th fret. Perfect. Perfect. Oh, that went a little sharp there. Still a little sharp. Perfect. Whenever you're intonating guitar, you want to make sure that you are doing it in a playing position, albeit that this is kind of an awkward one. I'm resting the guitar on the table. In summary, here are the most important parts to getting a Fender Mustang set up and going well. Make sure that the ball ends of the strings are recessed into the tube. I showed you the close-up of that and how I actually do that when I'm stringing up the guitar. Make sure that the nut is lubricated. One thing I did not do yet, which I'm going to do in just a second here, is I have Q-tips that I take the excess amount from. When I am doing it, I make sure that the strings are a half step within the tuning that I want before I put in the nut sauce. You could also use graphite, you could use chapstick. There's a lot of different alternatives that people do use in case you don't have Big Ben's lubricant. And outside of that, stretch those strings. You might get frustrated because this system, it's very sensitive, so you might find you might have to do it multiple times and you will be good after that. I mean, I abuse the hell out of vibrato systems, whether it's the one on the Mustang, the Jaguar, the Jazzmaster, Stratocaster, or Paul Reed Smith style guitar. It doesn't really matter. I'm just the kind of player that needs it to be reliable. These guitars can be reliable, and last but not least, before I forget to reiterate, make sure your intonation is good to go and do it in a playing position. That's all I have for you guys today. I now have an hour and 30 minutes worth of me doing a boring setup on this guitar to throw into the computer to edit so you guys can watch it. If you enjoyed this or found this useful, or maybe you learned something, let me know in the comments down below. If there's any of the other guitars that we have here that you'd like to see the same kind of process done for, also, please leave a comment and let me know that as well. Other than that, tell somebody that you love them. I'm going to get going, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you on the next video. Take it easy.